My husband held our daughter for 4 minutes before he asked whose baby she was. She was 3 days old, 6 pounds, 11 ounces, still had the little knit hat on from the nursery, the one with the stripe, and he was standing there holding her like she might go off, and he asked me that question like he'd been rehearsing it since the delivery room. I told him to say it again, slower, so I'd remember exactly how he sounded when I decided what I was going to do about it. I'll call him Ryan. It's not his real name. None of this is anyone you'd recognize, but every part of it happened, and I've had a long time now to think about which parts I'd tell first. He didn't repeat it. He just kept looking at her face like it was a math problem he couldn't make come out right. Dark hair, dark eyes, both of us fair, both of us blue-eyed, and I watched 28 years of a person I thought I knew turn into somebody who does long division in a hospital room instead of saying congratulations. I didn't cry. I want to be clear about that, because everyone assumes I cried. I sat up in the bed, I asked for her back, and when he handed her to me, his hands were already different, careful in a new way, like he was returning something he wasn't sure was his to have been holding. That was the moment. Not the fight that came later, not the test, not any of it. That was the moment everything after it got decided, and he doesn't even know that, because he thinks the story starts with the DNA kit. It doesn't. It starts with 4 minutes. We'd been married 4 years, together 6. He proposed on a Tuesday, because he said Tuesdays never had anything good happen on them, and he wanted to fix that, which is the kind of thing you remember when you're trying to figure out where a person went. The pregnancy had been easy, all things considered. Normal complaints, swollen ankles, heartburn, him rubbing my feet in front of the television without being asked, which I'd tell my sister Casey about like it was some kind of achievement, because it was, for him. I think now about the ultrasounds. 12 weeks, 20 weeks, 32 weeks. He came to every one. He cried at the 20-week scan when the tech said she for the first time. Actual tears. And I remember thinking I'd married someone who was going to be good at this. I didn't know yet what I was watching. None of us ever do, in the moment. It's only after that you go back through the footage in your head and start marking the places where it was already starting. There was a nurse, the second night in the hospital, who came in to check vitals and looked at Nora, that's our daughter's name, and said, "Wow, where'd all that dark hair come from?" Just making conversation. Nurses say things like that 50 times a shift and never think about it again. I laughed. I said something about my grandfather, who had hair black as a piano and eyes to match, features that skipped 2 generations and landed all at once on a 6-pound person nobody was expecting them on. I didn't think about it again either. Ryan didn't say anything. I noticed that later, once I knew to look for it. He just got quiet and reached for his phone, and I assumed he was texting his mother the way he did 50 times a day that week, sending her every picture like she was the only person who existed outside that room. We brought Nora home on a Thursday. That part I know for certain, because it's when the numbers started. 11 days. That's how long it took him to say it directly, but I can trace the whole slide if I want to, because I've had a lot of nights to trace it. Day 1, home from the hospital. He changed her diaper, made the bottles, did the 2 a.m. shift without complaint. Normal, exhausted new father. Nothing. Day 3, his mother Diane came over. Diane never liked me in a way she'd have denied under oath. All smiles and passive comments. 4 years of, well, in our family we do it this way, and I'd learned to let most of it slide off. Day 3, she held Nora for 11 minutes. I know, because I was watching the clock, because something in her face made me start watching. And then she said, holding the baby out slightly, like she was showing her off to someone, "She certainly doesn't look like our side." Ryan laughed, a short one, not a real one. Day 6, I woke up at 4 in the morning to feed Nora, and he wasn't in bed. Found him in the bathroom, sitting on the closed toilet lid, phone in both hands, that blue light on his face, the way it gets when someone's been reading the same page for 20 minutes without moving. He said he couldn't sleep. I believed him because I wanted to. Day 9, I went looking for the browser history on the shared laptop to find a pediatrician appointment reminder, and instead I found 14 search entries, going back 6 days, every one some version of the same question. Can two blue-eyed parents have a brown-eyed baby? Recessive gene probability calculator. How rare is it for both parents fair and baby dark? 14 times, 6 days. I counted them twice because I didn't believe myself the first time. I didn't say anything that day either. I want to be honest about that part because it's the part where I still had a choice about how this went, and I chose to wait, and waiting is its own kind of decision. Day 11, he stopped reaching for her when she cried. That's the detail that still gets me, more than anything he said later. Not the test, not the accusation. The fact that a 6-pound person started crying in a bassinet 3 feet from him and his hands didn't move. I picked her up. I always picked her up, and somewhere in there I understood, the way you understand weather is about to turn before the sky's even gone gray, that I wasn't watching a man who was tired. I was watching a man building a case. Day 11, that night, after Nora was down, he sat across from me at the kitchen table like we were about to discuss a mortgage refinance. I need to say something, he said, and I need you to not react the way you usually react. I asked him what that meant. He said it meant not making him feel like a bad person for having a normal thought. I told him to just say it. I need a paternity test, he said. I can't keep pretending I'm not thinking about it every time I look at her. I want you to understand what that sentence does to a person who has just given birth. Not the request, the word pretending. Like the 11 days of distance hadn't been an accident of exhaustion, but a performance he'd been running the whole time, badly, while the real thing sat underneath it, waiting for permission to come out. I tried genetics first. I always try the reasonable thing first. It's a flaw, honestly. I told him about my grandfather. I told him traits skip generations, that it happens constantly, that I could show him photos of my own baby pictures where I came out darker than either of my parents expected. I was calm. I was thorough. I remember thinking even as I said it, like a lawyer defending a case I shouldn't have needed a lawyer for. He listened to all of it and said, "That's what everyone in your situation says." Your situation. Like I was a category of person now. Like 11 days of silence had already sorted me into a file somewhere in his head labeled women who explain away the evidence. Then he told me the rest, and this is the part I want to get exactly right, because it's the part that told me everything I needed to know about how long he'd actually been planning this, and how little of it had anything to do with me finding out gently. He'd already called a lab. $480, results in 9 business days, half due at collection and half at pickup. He hadn't told me he was going to call. He'd already priced it out like a home repair, already picked the lab, he admitted this last, like it cost him something to say it out loud, already asked his mother if she thought he was doing the right thing. His mother, before me. 11 days of my body still recovering from delivering his daughter, and the second call he made about our marriage went to Diane, not to me. "If you won't do it," he said, "I want a divorce. I mean that." I didn't cry at that either. I want to keep being honest about that, because it matters for what comes next. I sat there and felt something in my chest go very still and very cold, the exact opposite of what I expected grief to feel like, and I said, "Fine, book it, but you're going to live with what this costs you. Either way it comes back." He asked what that meant. I told him he'd find out. That was the moment I stopped trying to convince him of anything, not because I gave up, because I understood, finally, completely, that convincing him wasn't the actual assignment anymore. He'd already decided what kind of story he was in. My job now was deciding what kind of story I was going to walk out of, regardless of what a lab in a strip mall told either of us in 9 business days. That night, after he went to bed, the guest room, his choice, not mine, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone, and I did 3 things. I texted my sister Casey the whole story, every detail, because I needed one person who knew exactly what I knew. I found the name of a family law attorney 2 towns over, someone Casey's coworker had used, and I booked a consultation for $275, cash, so it wouldn't show up on a card he'd see. And I opened a blank note on my phone and I wrote down, in order, every date, every comment, every search, everything Diane had said, everything Ryan had said, starting from the nurse's comment on night 2. Not because I thought I'd need it in court. I didn't know yet if I'd need it anywhere. I did it because for the first time in 11 days, I was doing something instead of waiting to see what happened to me. The test happened on a Monday. Cheek swabs, both of them, in a strip mall office between a nail salon and a place that ships packages. A technician who did this 50 times a week and treated it exactly like the errand it was for her and exactly like the earthquake it was for us. 9 business days. That was Monday. Results were due the following Thursday. I want to walk you through those 9 days in order, because it's where almost everything that actually mattered happened, and it's the part he still doesn't fully understand, even now. Day 1 and 2 were quiet in the specific way a house gets quiet when 2 people are being polite to each other on purpose. He made coffee. I drank it. We talked about Nora's diaper rash and nothing else. He slept in the guest room. I didn't ask him to come back. Day 3, Casey came over while he was at work. She held Nora, made the face people make at newborns, and then looked at me and said, "You know this doesn't end with him just apologizing, right? Even if she's his. Especially if she's his." I told her I knew. I don't think I fully did yet, not in the part of me that still wanted, somewhere underneath everything, for this to just turn out to be a bad 2 weeks we'd tell people about someday like it was funny. "You already made the appointment with the lawyer," Casey said. "You don't make that appointment if part of you doesn't already know." She wasn't wrong. I hate that she wasn't wrong. Day 4, Diane came by. Uninvited, the way she always was, letting herself in with the key Ryan had given her without asking me, holding a casserole like a peace offering for a war she'd started. "I hope you don't think I meant anything by what I said," she told me, setting the dish down. "I only want what's best for my son." "You said she doesn't look like your side," I said, in front of him, 4 days after I gave birth. "I was being honest," Diane said. "Some of us still believe in that." I didn't fight her. I'd already decided fighting Diane was a waste of a resource I didn't have much of left. I just looked at her and said, "You should be careful what you plant in a person who's already looking for reasons to be scared," and she didn't have anything to say back to that, which was its own kind of answer. Day 5 was the night everything got more complicated than I wanted it to be, and this is the part where I have to admit Ryan wasn't only the villain of this, even though God knows he'd earned the title by then. Nora wouldn't settle. 2 in the morning, screaming the specific scream that means something's actually wrong, and not just the normal newborn complaint, and I was up pacing the hallway with her when Ryan's door opened and he came out, and instead of going back to bed he just stood there watching me, and then he said, "Can I try?" I handed her over because I was exhausted and because some small idiot part of me still wanted him to be the person who could fix it. He walked her. 20 minutes, low voice, some song I didn't recognize, and she went quiet against his chest in a way she hadn't for me in an hour, and I stood in the hallway and watched my husband hold our daughter like he wasn't currently paying $480 to find a reason to leave her. Afterward, in the kitchen, at 3 in the morning, he told me something he'd never told me in 6 years together. His father wasn't his father's father, not biologically. Diane had told him when he was 19, drunk at a wedding, some story about a summer before she married Ryan's dad, a man she never named, a truth the whole family had quietly agreed never to say out loud again. Ryan's father knew, had always known, raised him anyway, loved him anyway, and never once made Ryan feel like the ground under him was different than anyone else's. But I always knew it was, Ryan said, I grew up knowing the ground could just be fake and nobody would tell you. And now I've got a kid who looks like she came from somewhere else, and I can't turn off the part of my brain that thinks maybe I'm just repeating it, being the guy this happens to. I understood him better in that one conversation than I had in 6 years of marriage. I also didn't forgive him. Those two things sat next to each other just fine, which surprised me more than either of them alone did. "That's real," I told him. "That's a real thing that happened to you, and I'm sorry it did. But you didn't ask me a single question about it before you turned it into an accusation against me. You turned your fear into my trial. Those aren't the same thing, and you don't get to collapse them into each other just because you finally explained where the fear came from." He didn't have an answer for that. I don't think there is one. Day 6 through 8 went by mostly in silence again, but a different kind, less cold, more like two people standing near a hole in the floor, both aware it was there, neither one saying its name. I used the time. I toured a 2-bedroom apartment 11 minutes from Casey's place, first and last month plus a security deposit. $2,200 I'd already moved into a savings account he didn't check. I met with the lawyer, who told me plainly that documented erratic behavior toward a new mother, the searches, the ultimatum, the 11 days of withdrawal, all of it dated in my notes app, would matter a great deal if this ever became about custody, regardless of what the DNA said. "People think paternity is the whole case," she told me. "It's almost never the whole case. It's usually just the thing that finally makes someone write everything else down." Day 9, Thursday. The lab called at 11:40 in the morning. Ryan had taken the day off work for it, which told me something too. He hadn't taken a single day off in 11 days of quietly destroying our marriage, but he cleared his calendar for the verdict. He put it on speaker. A woman's voice, flat, professional, the same voice probably used for 100 results a week. Good news and bad news, delivered in the identical register. Probability of paternity, 99.99%, she said. Based on the genetic markers tested, Ryan is confirmed as the biological father. He put both hands over his face. I watched his shoulders go first, then his breathing, and then he was crying in a way I hadn't seen since our wedding day, and he reached for me across the kitchen table like the last 11 days had just been a fever that broke. "Thank God," he said. "Thank God. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We can just move past this now, right? We got the answer. It's over." I let him hold my hand for exactly as long as it took me to say the next part. "You got the only thing you were ever actually asking for," I told him. "I already got mine." He asked what I meant. "I mean, I already know everything I need to know about who you are when you're scared," I said. "The test only ever answered your question. It didn't answer mine." The next 6 weeks were the part nobody watching from outside would call satisfying, because there was no scene where I got to say one perfect line and walk out to applause. There was just a lot of paperwork, and a moving truck on a Saturday, and Diane calling 4 times a day trying to get me to think about what this does to that baby, as if she hadn't been the first person to plant a question mark over that baby's face while she was still wearing a hospital bracelet. Ryan tried everything in those 6 weeks. Therapy, on his own first, and then asking if I'd come. Letters, a version of himself that showed up every single day, consistent in a way he'd never had to be before, because consistency had never been tested before. I noticed. I want to be fair about that. I noticed every bit of it. It just didn't change the math. He'd spent $480 and 11 days finding out our daughter was his. He never once, in all of it, asked what it would cost to find out whether I was still his wife. He assumed that part was fixed. He assumed I came back automatically the moment the lab did. I didn't. Nora's in the 2-bedroom with me, 11 minutes from Casey, in a room I painted myself the week we moved in. Ryan sees her 3 days a week, moving toward closer to even once the custody agreement finalizes next month, and to his credit, And I do give him credit, because pretending he's a monster would be its own kind of lie. He's never missed a single one of those days. He's better at the parts that used to scare him. He's still working on the part where fear doesn't get to write the ending before he's checked the facts. Diane and I don't speak. That one, I'm less conflicted about. His father, it turns out, finally told his own version of the family story out loud for the first time in decades, not long after our test came back. Some ripple that started with his son almost destroying a marriage over a question that had haunted their whole family quietly for 2 generations. I don't know if that's healing or just a family finally getting tired of the same secret. Maybe both. I think about that hospital room a lot. 4 minutes. That's all it took. Not because Ryan is uniquely cruel, I've come to believe he isn't, but because fear, when nobody ever teaches you what to do with it, doesn't wait to find out if it's justified before it starts making decisions for you. He got the answer he wanted in 9 business days. I got mine in 11, standing in a hallway at 3 in the morning, holding a baby whose hands didn't reach for me the same way once I already knew what he was capable of believing. The test told him something true. It just wasn't the thing that was actually broken. If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever watched someone need proof of something that should have just been trust, and watched what that need cost everyone standing near it, hit subscribe. Drop 1 word in the comments if you made it to the end. Proof. I read every single one.